It's the time of the year when everything changes, when unknown players become legends in a matter of seconds. One shot, one game, one moment, that's all it takes to become a hero in March Madness. We've seen it happen again and again, players rising out of nowhere, hitting impossible shots, and carrying their teams on unforgettable runs. And for a brief moment, the entire world is watching them. Their names are everywhere, Sports Center, social media, headlines across the country, they own March. But then, just as quickly as they arrive, they disappear. Because for every household name, there are dozens of players who had their moment, their one shining moment, and somehow we forgot. These are 5 players who everyone forgot but are March Madness legends. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. Back in 2019, Edwards, playing for the Purdue Boilermakers men's basketball team, turned the NCAA tournament into his personal highlight reel, and I'm not exaggerating. He wasn't just good, he was unstoppable. Over a 4-game stretch, Edwards dropped 139 total points. That's an average of nearly 35 points per game in the biggest moments against the best teams in the country. Against the defending champs, the Villanova Wildcats, Edwards went nuclear, 42 points and 10 threes. It felt like every time he crossed half-court line, the ball was going up and it was going in. But now, his defining moment was the Elite Eight matchup against the Virginia Cavaliers. Edwards dropped 42 points again, and these were deep threes, contested shots, NBA range pull-ups. It didn't matter, he was on a different planet. And yet, despite one of the greatest individual performances we've ever seen, Purdue lost in overtime after a miracle sequence from Virginia that would eventually lead them to the national championship. And just like that, Carsen Edwards' legendary run got buried in history. But make no mistake, for a few nights in March, he was the most dangerous player in college basketball, and if you watched it live, you knew. It felt like he couldn't miss, and he wasn't just hot, he was historic. Carsen Edwards was absolutely on a run, and this is the craziest performance I've ever seen with my 2 eyes. So what happened to Carsen Edwards? After his legendary March Madness run, Edwards would make it to the NBA, getting drafted, spending time with the Boston Celtics and later the Detroit Pistons, but he never quite found a consistent role. But overseas, that's a different story. Edwards took his game to Europe and completely revived his career. He's now playing for Virtus Bologna in Italy and is one of the best scorers in the entire EuroLeague. We're talking 20 plus points per game, highlight plays, and even earning all EuroLeague honors. So while he might be forgotten by casual fans in the US, Carsen Edwards is still out there getting buckets. And I personally think an NBA team needs to take a flyer on this guy because he is a pure scorer. When March Madness legends are discussed, one name is impossible to overlook: Cardiac Kemba. In 2011, Kemba Walker didn't just lead the UConn Huskies to a national title, he dominated every step of the postseason, starting with the toughest tournament of all, the Big East Conference Tournament. The 2011 Big East Conference Tournament was grueling. 16 teams, one of the deepest conferences in the country, and a top 4 seed meant you usually skip the early rounds, but not for UConn. They were the 9th seed going in. What happened next was unprecedented. Over 5 games in 5 days, Kemba was everywhere, scoring, creating, and leading UConn to the Big East title. His 130 total points not only powered the Huskies, it set a record for most points in any conference tournament in the country that season. He was named the Big East Conference Tournament MVP for it, and that was undebatable. One moment defined the run: a step-back buzzer beater to beat number 3 Pittsburgh, the shot that lit up Madison Square Garden and announced Kemba to the nation. Winning the Big East didn't just get UConn a trophy, it gave them momentum and a ticket to the NCAA tournament. Once in the tournament, Walker didn't let up. He led the Huskies through 6 tournament games, averaging about 23.5 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists per game, one of the most complete and unforgettable performances in March Madness history. In the national title game, Kemba battled through Butler's tough defense, finishing with a stat line that sealed UConn's championship and cemented his March legacy. From buzzer beaters in the Big East tournament to clutch buckets in the Big Dance, Cardiac Kemba didn't just win games, he changed the atmosphere of March Madness forever. And legendary doesn't even begin to cover it. And that's why Kemba Walker's 2011 postseason is still talked about every March, and he's one of the true legends of the sport and one of the greatest performances ever to ever do it, and he will always go down in history. So what's Cardiac Kemba up to today? After an incredible 12-year professional career, including 4 NBA All-Star appearances, Kemba Walker officially retired from playing following a final season overseas with AS Monaco, where he won a French league title. Instead of stepping away from basketball, Kemba has come full circle, returning to where it all began. He's now a player enhancement coach with the Charlotte Hornets, helping young NBA players develop their games and pass on his experience. And that's not all. Kemba is also staying active on the court, signing on to compete in the Big 3 for the 3-on-3 League for the 2025 season, where former pros showcase their skills in a fast-paced summer format. From March Madness to NBA star and now mentoring competitor, Kemba's story isn't over. He's still part of the game and influencing basketball today. When you think of March Madness legends, there is a lot of great shooters, but pure shooting isn't always what comes first. But for Fletcher Magee, he changed that narrative entirely. In 2019, the Wofford Terriers were a 7 seed, and Magee became one of the most prolific shooters in college basketball history, and he did it on the sport's biggest stage. Over 4 seasons at Wofford, Magee was a scoring machine. He averaged 18.8 points per game, for his career and shot 43.5% from three and drilled shots with ridiculous consistency. But the stat that no one could touch, career three-pointers made. On March 21st, 2019, in the first round of the NCAA tournament against Seton Hall, Magee broke the all-time Division I record for most career three-pointers, surpassing the legendary mark previously held by Oakland's Travis Bader. He finished the night with 7 triples and 24 points, leading Wofford to their first ever NCAA tournament win. Wofford isn't a typical powerhouse, but they made noise because Magee's shot was impossible to ignore. The Terriers weren't expected to stun teams, but with Magee's gravity on the perimeter, the whole game changed. Not every moment was perfect, however, and in their next game against Kentucky, Magee had a tough shooting night from deep, but that record will forever define his legacy in March. So what's Fletcher Magee doing now? After going undrafted in 2019, he played in the NBA Summer League, and then he took his talents overseas. He's now a pro in Europe, most recently playing in the ABA and Montenegrin leagues, continuing to fire up threes at a high level at the next stage of his career. A small school star turned into the sharpest shooter in NCAA history, Fletcher Magee's March Madness legend isn't about titles or Final Fours, it's about changing the record books. And sometimes, that's the most unforgettable legacy of all. I hope he gets another chance at the NBA because he is a sniper, but he's getting buckets regardless. When March Madness became Jimmer Mania, there was only one name on everyone's lips, Jimmer Fredette. Playing for the BYU Cougars, Fredette didn't just score points, he lit up the college basketball world with one of the most electrifying senior seasons in NCAA history. In 2010-11, Fredette averaged nearly 29 points per game and led the entire nation in scoring, all while hitting deep threes and step backs that looked effortless. He was more than a scorer, he became a cultural phenomenon. Gamers, fans, and even sports media started using a new verb whenever opponents struggled, to get jimmered. In the Mountain West Conference tournament, Fredette exploded, dropping 50 points in a game, setting BYU records for scoring, and becoming the school's all-time leading career points leader in the very same stretch. That performance electrified the Cougars and sent them into the NCAA tournament with real momentum. In the 2011 NCAA tournament, Fredette turned that momentum into madness. In the first round, he poured in 32 points and beat Wofford to push BYU into the round of 32. In the second round, he followed with 34 points and a win over Gonzaga, sending BYU to the Sweet 16, their first trip there in 30 years. The run finally would end against Florida in overtime, but not before Fredette had captured the nation's attention with scoring that still echoes through March Madness lore to this day. So what's Jimmer up to now? After being selected 10th overall in the 2011 NBA draft, Fredette had a solid pro career in the NBA and then overseas, including becoming an MVP and scoring star in the China CBA. In 2025, he retired from professional basketball, and recently he's been deeply involved with the USA Basketball's 3-on-3 program, even leading the US men's 3-on-3 team as its head and helping grow support for the sport internationally. From Jimmer Mania to international hoops, his March Madness legend started at BYU and still inspires players and fans alike, and that's why Jimmer Fredette will always be one of March Madness's most unforgettable stars. March Madness is where legends are born, and Trey Burke is one of the brightest. The Michigan point guard defying clutch in the 2013 tournament. Burke averaged 18.6 points per game and 6.7 assists, and he was the consensus National Player of the Year. In the Sweet 16, he erupted for 23 points and 10 assists, scoring every single point after halftime, including a game-tying three-pointer with 4.2 seconds left to force overtime and stun number 1 Kansas 87-85. The iconic shot that propelled Michigan through the Elite Eight and all the way to the national championship to their first Final Four since 1993, but where they would unfortunately fall to Louisville 82-76. But Trey's fearless play and late-game heroics left a permanent mark on March Madness lore, and he also had a block in this game that was called goaltending, which is very controversial and could have changed the momentum of the game. Trey Burke didn't just lead Michigan, he became the face of clutch. His 2013 March Madness run remains one of the most unforgettable in tournament history. And I believe earlier I said that it was goaltending. That was a bad call, but actually it was a foul, which you'll see in a second. Obviously, Rick Pitino ended up winning his first national championship here, but Trey Burke carried the hell out of this team. Look at this pass right here. Trey Burke with the outlet, throwing the lob up top. What a pass, keeping Michigan in the game. And then, I believe on this next play, here it is. This is a clean block, and they called a foul, and After leading Michigan to the national title game in 2013, Burke declared for the NBA draft and was selected 9th overall by the Minnesota Timberwolves, who immediately traded his rights to the Utah Jazz. He made an instant impact, earning NBA All-Rookie First-Team honors with the Jazz. Despite this, he would end up becoming a journeyman and struggled to stick with a role where he would eventually move on to play in the G League and then the Guangdong South Tigers and the China CBA. For ups and downs, Trey Burke's pro journey reflected his love for the game. From NBA roots to international courts, he kept proving his skills on every stage. Here are some honorable mentions I wanted to add for some March Madness legends. If you guys want to see a part 2, I will definitely be adding some of these guys, so drop that down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you did, and drop down any comments you want to see for future videos or feedback on this video, how I can be better. Comment down below also who you think is winning the national championship. We are down to our final four. If you watched my previous video of my perfect March Madness bracket, I had Illinois winning it all. Hopefully that comes through. And thank you guys so much for watching, and peace out.